Welcome to this presentation about digital content strategy. My name is Diedrich, and I'm excited to share with you my model for understanding what digital content strategy is. Digital content strategy is conversation management. In this presentation, I will show how conversation and content strategy relate to each other. I will cover who, what, when, where, and why of conversation and content strategy. I will also bring up some specific pieces of advice we've heard as content strategists, and how to use conversation as a way to understand each piece of advice. My goal is to help you understand digital content strategy overall by using conversation as a model. First, let's talk about what conversation is. Conversation involves at least two people and requires an exchange where one person speaks and the other person listens. When it comes to websites and digital sources of information, this conversation can be more like a question and answer conversation, where readers have questions and your website provides answers. This is a form of computer-mediated communication. It may not seem like conversation the way social media does, but it is. To understand this better, let's look at all the relevant parts that create conversation. This is the who, what, when, where, and why of conversation. Let's start with the who. You need to know who you are talking to and get as good a sense of them as possible so you can engage them better. In conversation, you get a sense of the person you're talking to right then and there. Online, this may mean looking at analytics for your website to create segments, or doing more audience research and creating descriptive personas that give you more context to know how to approach them. You might also develop a voice and tone guide to standardize how people on your writing team should speak to people in your audience. Next, there's the what. You know what you need to tell your audience, and it can help to list out all the important points. If you already have a website, then you might do a gap analysis to see if anything is missing. If you don't have a website, don't worry about arranging your points into pages yet. There are a few more details to consider before you get started. Next, there's the when. Here you have to think about actual conversations you have with people and how they start, move forward, and finish. You have to consider the timing of each point and how each point gets people closer to the end of the conversation with a feeling of satisfaction. You might use a customer journey or similar type of map that allows you to group your points based on timing and relationship to one another. Next, there's the where. Now that you've thought about the order your conversation is likely to happen in, you can think about all the channels you might use to reach your audience and how each channel fits into the conversational flow. It is likely you'll drive traffic to either your store or your website, but it's important you think about which other channels, like email, postal mail, mobile applications, print ads, online ads, and other communication tools can help you start or continue the conversation with your audience. Finally, there's the why. This might be the most important. You need to be clear why you are talking to your audience. Not only that, you need to have a plan to monitor the conversation and measure the return on your effort. It's important you use all visitor analytics tools you have available and create meaningful reports from any data you have, both online and offline, so you can look for places where you lose your audience or opportunities to get a larger audience. Only effective reporting will help you make these decisions and maintain a clear understanding of the quality of the conversation. Okay, I've talked about all the parts of the conversation and mentioned some common tools people use to build content strategy. I should mention that the whole reason we need a strategy is because we're competing with others who are trying to have the same conversation with our audience. If we don't take the time to understand how this works, we could lose people who are essential for our business or organization. If you've already been learning about content strategy, then you may already know some common content advice. Let's go over a few examples and how conversation as a model helps us understand that advice better. Keep content fresh. I've heard this one since the beginning, and many of the people I've worked with have heard it too. But what I see people do is generate a lot of new content on their website that doesn't have lasting meaning. Typically, this is news or press releases that announce anything marketers think is important. What you really need to do is stay in the conversation and monitor what your competitors are saying, what your audience brings up, and anything you need to update because of changes you're making in your business or organization. You can use social media to stay in the conversation and share ideas without generating quickly depreciating content on your site. This helps you monitor the conversation and know when to update your website as the conversation evolves. You may need to create new pages to address new advances, or change how to talk about your industry when fundamental views change dramatically. That's what keeping your content fresh is all about. Be brief. This comes up every now and again, and some people I work with still ask how long a web page should be. Think about conversation. You don't want to go on for so long, or get lost in tiny details, that people lose interest in what you're saying. However, you also want to give enough information to answer their questions so they don't feel lost or dissatisfied. You may have to judge this through analytics and testing, since you can't see when their eyes glaze over. However, you might also use the people in your organization and talk about actual conversations they've had and what they've had to say to help people get the answers they wanted. Get rid of FAQs, or facts. If you really have frequently asked questions, then they should be part of the main conversation, not set aside. A page like this makes it seem like you have a list of non sequiturs. Conversations evolve naturally through points we make and the stories we tell. If the information is relevant, we share it at the right time. In the same way, all information on your website should be in the context of what is on your audience's mind. If you have information you want to share, but can't find a good spot for it, then maybe try different places and see which works best. It's likely you will find a place for it when you better understand its role in the conversation. I hope you understand digital content strategy a little better, now that you can think of conversation as a model to guide decisions. It helps me make the decisions I need to when I work on a website, and I've documented measurable improvements as a result. I hope you see the same, and thank you for watching my presentation.